Take 3 fingers.
Okay.
And push them down.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, we're live.
Files. And then when they want to ask a question, they click Q&A. Ask question.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So welcome to Marketing Basics for therapists and healers. I'm Rebecca Farrar, and I'm so grateful for CIS, Career and Community Engagement Services, to invite me here to talk to you today. A few quick kind of housekeeping things. There will be the yellow tab on the side is where the files are on Google Drive. So if you, after the session is over, if you want to look at them again, see the slides again, look them over, they'll be over there. And then if you want to ask a question, there's also a Q&A tab as well. So to get started, first of all, my name is Rebecca Farrar. So great to have you here. A little bit about me. I worked in marketing for about 10 years in a variety of roles. So it was everything from government, basically talking about bridges and marketing new bridge and construction projects, to doing entertainment PR, which is where I worked with a lot of film festivals, mostly C and D list celebrities, and that sort of thing, and then also nonprofit side. So I've done kind of a mix of a melange of lots of different types of marketing. And what I really noticed is people overcomplicate marketing. It can get so, especially in this digital age, you have everything from, wanting to do Google AdWords, advertising on Yelp, social media, email marketing. There are just all these different channels that have become more and more complex since technology has improved. And I really want to find an easy way to tell you that as a healer or a therapist, the things are actually really crucial for you to know and to know about, and the things that you can really just kind of leave behind and not waste your time with. That's really my goal here today, is to not make you think you have to become business people and be a total master in everything and all marketing, but to really just give you some basic tools that you can increase your business and learn about some basic marketing goals at the same time. The first thing I want to mention is that I'm going to throw in a few actual kind of marketing lingo and tech words in with the presentation, not because I think that you should be using them. I do my best not to use them at all, but I really want, when those words come up in conversation or if someone mentions them, so you actually know what they are. So that's kind of the purpose of having some of the more abbreviated versions, lingo, that sort of thing in the presentations. So to kick us off, sorry, I'm a little awkward on this computer because I can't see it in front of me. So we're going to start with just kind of a bunch of words of marketing. I'm sure you've heard about advertising, you hear about marketing, you hear about PR, public relations, that sort of thing. But really, marketing is the umbrella that is over all of those different things. So it includes everything from branding to product management to merchandise to analysis. A huge part of digital marketing is about assessing and be able to really measure. So you got a bunch of clicks, people stayed on the site this long, what was your click-through rate, what's your SEO, that sort of thing. So that's all a part of marketing. Branding, sales, all of that is marketing. And as a healer or a therapist, I don't want you to waste your time with all those different things. I'm going to give you a basic rundown of kind of the different types of marketing and the different tools and different channels that associate with each of those. So I see these, first of all, to start with, what is marketing? As I said, it's this umbrella kind of over everything that is about letting people know about your product. But on just a really simple level, it's just being able to make people aware and communicate the value of a product or a service. So in your case, it's usually going to be a service, not necessarily a product, unless you're selling products, in conjunction with your healing services. And then I also wanted to add in the etymology. My thesis work was on etymology and enchanting ourselves with language. So language for me is a huge way of being able to understand what the words that we're using. And marketing actually is very similar to the definition that we use now, which is rare. A lot of times the etymology and the definition are very different. So this is a very modern word. It's mostly from Latin. There's not necessarily Proto-Indo-European root for this one. So it shows us that marketing is a fairly new thing. You know, since kind of the whole idea of Latin times, people started trading, started selling, that sort of thing. So just some fun, interesting, maybe not so interesting information about marketing. The next thing is that marketing has these 4 kind of basic steps that I like to think of. So the first step is really about finding your target market. And what happens a lot of times is people start talking about marketing and they just start going crazy. You know, they start posting all the time on social media, or they run out and try to buy Yelp ads, or they print a bunch of flyers and put them all over the city. But really none of that is that helpful, and without even knowing who you're trying to reach. So in marketing, there's really, you can't even, as I say here, you can't even get to a marketing strategy where you're looking at social media channels or email marketing. You can't even really get there until you've done these first 2 pieces. And I think those 2 first pieces are the pieces that everyone seems to miss, or majority of people miss when they start doing a marketing strategy of any sort. So the first bit is around your target market. So we'll go through each of these individually, but target market is really who you're trying to reach. And this is a very markety lingo word, but I find it helpful to just understand who are you actually trying to reach? Who is your target marketing person? The second piece is your brand. And this encompasses a lot. It can be your logo, it can be, you know, the colors you use, it can be your slogan, it can be the personality, but really the brand is just, it's as simple as what do you want, what you're offering to communicate to people? What is the first impression they're gonna have of you? The third piece of then is then that's when you start into the marketing strategy. So what types of channels do you wanna use? What sorts of things do you wanna communicate? Do you wanna have a blog? Where do you wanna focus your energy? That's all marketing strategy. And with that, timeline, phases of marketing, that sort of thing. And the last piece is assessment. And this is the one majority of people forget about, especially if you're not in tech. In tech, the huge kind of focus is on assessment, you know, using all these measurement tools, doing A/B testing, where you have 2 different situations and you figure out which ones people click on, you know, conversion funnels, all that sort of thing. But for a marketer, for healers and therapists, you know, assessment can be just as simple as how many people asked me about my services and how many people came for an appointment. How many people came in and then referred a friend. You know, just you can use really basic assessment. You don't need to get these huge, long, drawn-out formulas or click-through rates like we use in product marketing. So the assessment piece is also a really important part of marketing that a lot of people forget about. So I want to make sure that I do a brief discussion on that as well. Should we do a check-in right now? So it looks like we can take a quick break if you have any questions thus far. I know we're just kind of diving in, but Audra had a good suggestion that maybe if we have quite a few people online, so if there's something that you want to, if you have any Q&As.
We don't have any so far.
Okay, so we're just going to check in.
So if you do have questions, just scroll over to the left side of your screen and click the Q&A button, and then you can type in your question and we'll periodically check on those.
Oh, I see. It's there. Okay. We'll check on those every now and then.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I feel like I should be more well versed in Google Hangouts, but it's far more awkward when I'm doing it this way. So let's get started with actual marketing. So the target market. And this is also a very cliche marketing thing to use, the actual target. I try to do my best to use what they would use in marketing, which is we use a lot of really kind of cliche images like targets or the standout apple or that sort of thing. So here is the cliche target market image with some basic info. So, you know, you really want to think about your ecosystem. I don't like to use the word competitor. I think that's a very old way of thinking about business when you have competitors. So when I do kind of an assessment of people offering similar services, they're just a part of the same ecosystem. That just makes it feel a lot friendlier, especially with healers and therapists. It's better to have a network that you're not competing against, but maybe just a group you're really all supporting each other. So when you're looking at your ecosystem, as I call it, there are several ways you can do that. So you can just do a simple Google search and see, okay, who's offering these services? Where do they live? You know, what are their pricing? How do they word on their website? Are they on social media? You know, just kind of doing some basic research around people doing similar things to you. And then without AdWords, so on Google, if you notice when you do a search, the top results, above the results, are what they call Google AdWords. And it's where people can buy search keywords, and then whenever someone searches for those words, their business and website will pop up. So AdWords, I don't necessarily recommend unless it's for research purposes. I don't recommend that people buy a bunch of AdWords, spend a bunch of money, but it's an amazing research tool. So if you are really curious, who you want to test out language. So on a Google AdWord, you could test out keywords like therapist, couples, and NLP or something like that. If you want to test those words, you could just pay maybe $20, see if anybody clicks on the information that you have, and then keep testing which words people might be more interested in. So it's Google AdWords. I don't know I'd ever recommend doing it long-term over and over again unless you're a very large corporation. But for research, it's a really great tool. And I have those resources actually in the handout as well. They're similar to that. So the other piece is looking on LinkedIn. Just look at people doing something similar to you and see which tag words they're using. You can endorse people on LinkedIn and just see, are they marketing themselves as therapists? Are they marketing themselves as coaches? Which kind of keywords are they also integrating with their profile? The next thing you could do is just look at websites. I put this in this is one of my favorite tools is actually Alexa.com, and that's in the resources kind of in the handout on the right side. But Alexa.com is an amazing website because what it does is you can search any website that has a certain number of visitors, and you can see who are the people and the demographics of the people visiting that site. So it's really helpful. When I've been starting a business for a while, and what I noticed is when I went to Alexa to look up, my target market was actually someone different than I thought it was, because after looking at Alexa, I noticed that for certain products, what I was looking for, maybe a woman, 20 to 45, high school educated. And when I looked up a website that was similar to my idea on Alexa.com, it was mostly 80% women, up to the age of 60, and majority college educated. So anyway, Alexa.com is a great tool to just do some basic research on your target market. The next thing you want to do, this ideal client piece, in marketing we call that a persona. So a target persona would be someone you would really go through what they like to do, where they hang out, what they like to eat, their age, where they live, kind of all these various things. So I listed here the location, the demographic, the psychographic, and their behaviors. And that is just, there's sometimes a resistance, I think, to healers and therapists to wanting to name these very particular things. It can feel kind of stereotyping to do something like this, but I think you'll also find you can create this persona and it doesn't have to be a stereotype. The huge piece with this is that you really want to be specific. So it's not just, if you think about your ideal client, are they, think about their ages, think about the behaviors. Do they already read certain self-help books? Do they enjoy going to meditation retreats? So really just honing in on their behaviors as well as the things they're interested in will really help you get an idea of where to find them and also how to talk to them at the same time. So at the end of this, with each of these major kind of sections, I'm trying to do a tool that you can use that's on the handout, and then also homework. So the kind of the basic homework I would recommend for doing a target market is just to really create this ideal persona. Who is your ideal client? And really, be specific as much as you can. So that's target market. That's a lot. Obviously, it takes a long time to kind of hone in and figure out exactly who you're wanting to have as your client, but that's just some really, really basic stuff to get us started. So the next section is branding. And again, when we think of brand, sometimes we think it's the logo. My logo has to look right. My colors have to be right. And my the website has to have the right images and all this stuff. But really, the brand, I just like to think of it as it's a basic personality. It's someone's basic experience of you. So it's more so about the way you're talking to them. And of course, it's also the logo, but what is the logo saying? That's, I think, a really more friendly way to think about what a brand is versus all these other pieces. So when we talk about a brand, it's an identity. It's an experience that someone has of your company or your services. It's also your vision. So I wrote as a brand brief in marketing, what happens a lot and what we do a lot is we create these brand briefs. And so what it is it has, this vision, it has a promise, it has a personality, it has the company values. That's something that I have as homework to create a brand brief, but whatever piece of that brand brief feels interesting to you, I would focus on that. So as far as a vision, if you just want to think about what is it that you really want to be and who do you really want to be for the people who want your service or might be your target market. So promise, and I don't know if this is something that healers really have to focus on, but I find it helpful to really think about, they call it a unique value proposition in really technical marketing lingo. And this, promise can be anything from, I really want my clients to walk away feeling really valued, or I really want them to feel at home, or whatever it is. Just thinking of some way to really help yourself stand out from other people in the same field. Then again, your personality, I said archetype, it's a lot of times kind of the slang right now in marketing is to talk about your brand story. That's something that people really focus on. What is your brand story? And I wanted, because we're a very, psychologically focused community, your archetype and the mythology that's also associated with your service. I really enjoy talking about, any of the basic archetypes that you would see in, even in astrology or in mythology. Those archetypes are also something that you're expressing in a business. So I would encourage you to think about the archetypes that are in your business's mythology as well. The other piece is the adjectives that you would use to describe your personality. I think this is actually, the adjectives and the archetypes are probably the most important piece of the brand experience. So when you think about an adjective, the really common ones people use are, friendly, approachable. It can be luxurious. It can be nice. I mean, just really thinking about the way you describe a person could also be how you describe your business, and how those, and a lot of times it will be you. The adjectives that you'll describe for your business will also probably be the ones that you most relate to on a personal level, and that's what's going to give them the power and the brand that is your business. So the last kind of piece of a brand brief is the values. What is the most important thing? I talked again about, making people wanting to feel comfortable. Maybe you really value openness or vulnerability. Just thinking about what are the things that in the sessions with you that you want people to really feel like you value in them and you value in the experience with you. The last, so the tool I recommend is called an empathy map. And I put an example, and it literally, you just can Google empathy map. It'll give you a bazillion different options of how to do it, but they're all very similar, where you kind of go through this process, and it might be hard to see, but there are these kind of 4 major different areas. So you kind of go through and you think about, so you have this target market, you figured out who this person is that you really want to have in your practice. And then you go through this empathy map and you think about, okay, so how do I want them to think and feel about my business? What do I want to hear about my business? So they're hearing I'm valued, or they're hearing this is safe. What do I want people to say? Maybe I want them to tell their friends that I'm a great listener, or I really value my time with them, or I'm very attentive, or whatever these pieces are. And then the other piece over there is what do they see? So maybe they see someone who is very warm and kind, or whatever these things are. But I would just encourage you to go onto Google and just Google empathy map. It's a really simple, really easy way for you to get information about really creating this brand personality that is your business, and ultimately it's you as well. Then the homework, again, is this brand brief. So when you talk about brand, there are these 2 pieces. So you're thinking about your target market. You're thinking about how you want them to feel. You're thinking about how you want them to experience your business. And then ultimately, you just really want to think about what is, if this were a person, what would their experience be? Because a lot of times in business right now, especially even on Facebook, we really have to separate ourselves. It's like you're either this entity that's a business and you have a fan page on Facebook, or you're this person on Facebook who's this normal person. And I think a huge part of what I'm trying to get rid of, especially for healers and therapists, is you're not separate, right? We can't create this split between who we are as people and who we are as a business. I think that that is actually really detrimental to helping us understand ourselves better, because the personal process mirrors the business process. And this is something I'm really passionate about when we talk about a brand, is that even recently I was finishing up a bunch of stuff for my business, and I was sending it to a few friends, and they were really mirroring back to me, well, it just doesn't feel like you. Like, where are you in this experience? And so I would really encourage you that this, don't say what you think, what people want to hear. Really have your business and your marketing be who you are. And that will really bring the clients and the people to you that are going to be the best for your business. I think this split that we've created between this LinkedIn persona and our personal persona, the things we can't talk about Facebook and the things we can talk about Facebook, I think that's really detrimental. And I really want to encourage you as a healer to heal that split, but start with the way that you do your business that way. So, and I don't know if I'm talking too fast. I know this is a lot of information. I'm hoping, because it's all kind of here, that it won't be quite so overwhelming, because you can just refer back to it with the handout. So now we're going to dive into the real juicy stuff. So when we talk about a marketing strategy, I don't want it to sound intimidating or that there's a whole bunch of stuff you have to do to have this strategy done. A marketing strategy can just be as simple as where you want to focus your energy, and that's it. So this is the piece. I think this is where a lot of confusion about what marketing is and what marketing isn't comes into play. People throw out a lot of words about marketing, and I really was trying to break it down into these very simple ideas. And I see it in these three different realms of what marketing is. So there's the stuff you pay for. So that's advertising. It's, Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn ads. It's the AdWords I talked about on Google that you can pay for keyword searches. It's display ads. So when you're on a website, you can see these certain advertisements pop up. These are the more traditional ones in like newspapers and that sort of thing. And then there's also affiliate and referral programs where you can pay to have your company website on somewhere and then get referrals that way. The second piece encompasses public relations, and that's earned. So that's when you've actually earned some sort of marketing referral or recommendation, especially so word of mouth and recommendations from friends and other clients definitely fall into the earned. Media and press, again, also falls into the earned. And again, I said public relations is a piece of that as well. So my favorite, which is what I have as, my favorite is actually the earned, which is why I put a star. I forgot I put these little symbols because I wanted to remind myself about which ones to say I liked the most. So the star is for the one I like the best. So if you're earning good marketing, that is the best gift that you can get. You're not spending any money. It's not taking a lot of your time to maintain. It's just a great way for you to get back what you've put into a business and really get the feedback that what you're doing is really valuable. So the earned for me is my favorite, and I encourage people to really focus there. The second favorite, which is a bit easier, is the owned, and that encompasses all of your communications. So it's your email marketing, it's your social media, it's your website, it's what's called content marketing, which is a blog where you're actually in charge of the content. That'd be called content marketing. And owned is my second favorite. That's why a star, for whatever reason, is number one, and the smiley face is number two. But owned is really the stuff that you're in charge of. It's the stuff that you have more control over. And so in that way, it's really helpful. And in that way, it can also be really draining. So this owned space is where I think a lot of therapists and people get overwhelmed, as they're really trying to tackle all these things at the same time instead of just, kind of feeling into what works best for them and just focusing there. And I'll go into that in a little bit more in the next slide. But this is just a basic breakdown of the different types of marketing. So then we get into marketing channels. So the types of marketing, are the different ways that marketing happens. And then the channels are actually what you're using to market your service or your product. And again, I like to break these down into three different categories. I created these categories so they may not be as clear, but I like to think of it in terms of online, which is like the new school type of marketing. The in-person, which encompasses both new and old, where it's technology-based and it's also person-to-person. And then the on-paper, which is the really old school way of marketing, or PR, where you basically would just have, reporters would write articles and that was your main source, or flyers, newspaper advertising, events and business cards. That's kind of the old school way of thinking about marketing. And I hate to say this, but I think a lot of healers and therapists tend to focus energy there, not realizing that actually it's the in-person and the online that are equally going to be as important to them. So the online piece, again, that's social media, it's Facebook, Google AdWords, email marketing, blogs, Yelp, YouTube, website SEO. So I wanted to give a little bit of information around email marketing, and the next slide is around the tools you can use for each of these channels to make them easier to use. As far as a blog, I put the ones in blue that I recommend the most. So obviously having a website and a Google search and with a little bit of SEO is really helpful. And a little later in the presentation, I'll do some basic tips on SEO and digital marketing, just as basic as it gets. I don't think you need to pay someone a bunch of money to do SEO. So email marketing is another one in the blue. So I'll go again, there'll be tools in the next group, in the next slide, but MailChimp, Constant Contact, just any way where you can have an email list, even if it's just an Excel file of people that have expressed interest in your business, that you can email them when there's updates or when there's something else going on. And then I also really like a blog. A blog is one of the easiest ways to increase your SEO on a website. What happens with Google is that, the algorithms consistently change, so I can't tell you all of the different ways to improve your search engine optimization, but a blog is one of the easiest because what Google does is that it basically gives you whatever websites are updated the most frequently get the best results in their algorithm. So if you have something like a blog, even if you're only updating it once a week, it gives you just a little bit of a boost, because if you were had a static website that you never changed, it would just keep dropping and dropping and dropping because there wouldn't be any adaptation and new things happening on the site. So that's why sites like Wikipedia or Yelp have such good search engine optimization, because a part of it is they're being updated so frequently. So any way you can find to have your website update frequently, whether it's having a Twitter feed in the side of the website or it's posting a blog even once a month. Anything like that to keep the search results really fresh will be really helpful for the online piece. And then in person, again, that's my favorite, which is why I put it in the square. Partnerships. I think we really underestimate the importance of creating partnerships with other healers or other groups of people to get referrals and recommendations. That's my number one. Meetups and networking. I know that some people are maybe more shy and the networking events are a little overwhelming, but there are ways to do it. Meetup.com has some really fun ones. You don't have to go to meetups that are just about healers and therapists. You can just go to a meetup for fun and get a client that way. So also BNI, I don't know how many of you have heard of that, but it's this in-person group that meets once a week. I don't really recommend that for people who are new to healing or being a therapist, because I think that, first of all, it's pretty expensive to be in a BNI group. And second of all, most people I know don't really start seeing a return on getting clients that way for several years into a group like that. So I think meetup.com is more important at this point. And then, of course, also in the blue is word of mouth and recommendations. A part of what I'm really clear that I have a very strong opinion on marketing is I think that it is really important to focus on this kind of old meets new school way of thinking about marketing. So, we get really caught up in how do we have the best website and how do we do social media and all these things. And really, that has to be really well balanced with this in-person component of how do you, build relationships and really focus on being a healer. And that's what you do best. So these other pieces are kind of excess. So again, the in-person is my favorite because I feel like it does a blend of both the new and the old. Thanks. So all of this I think is on the handout. I didn't want you to feel like you had to write down all of the websites. But so as far as tools go, there are obviously a variety, and this isn't even close to all of them. But if you do feel like you want to use some tools, you want to learn more about the statistics on your website, Google Analytics, just installing that on your website is really helpful. You can get a sense of, who's visiting your site, how often they stay on your site. It's called a bounce rate. And that's a really important analytic to know. And I'll go through this a little bit more in the assessment part of this presentation. But Google Keyword Tool, there's this thing called SpyFu, which also helps you increase your, and it's also one of the marketing tools I listed, that helps you also figure out which kind of analytics to use for SEO and SEM. And then with email marketing, MailChimp and Constant Contact are the two that I like the best. They're easiest to use. There's a lot of them, but I like those the best. And then for website, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Wix and Squarespace. You can also use WordPress because that has more of a blog component. Social media, there's a lot of different ones that will help you kind of manage what you want to say. So you can schedule posts if you don't just want to sit there all day and have to do updates. And I'll go into some quick tips on social media in the next slide. So that's coming. But some really good marketing tools for that. Hootsuite is my favorite. Also looking at just Google Trends and seeing what words and what is being posted on social media is really helpful for you to get a sense of, well, a whole bunch of people are posting on this topic, maybe I should too, and that'll increase my SEO on my blog or whatever. These sites really help you get a sense of what people are interested in. And so that always helps you get attention on social media or elsewhere. Yeah, we're just gonna check real fast and see if there's questions because I can't see, I have a blank computer screen.
It's not registering.
So, is there one? No, okay, great. So no questions, so we'll keep going. And of course, at the end, I'll definitely leave some space as we get into more of the more complex stuff with digital marketing. But the other kind of last marketing tool is the integration program. So these are really complicated. I don't know that I'd recommend them that much, but if you are interested in having a site that can help you do your email marketing, your social media, your Google SEO, and your SEM, all that stuff, 17 Hats is kind of a newer one, and my friend of a friend started that out of Denver, and I really like 17 Hats. There's also Spokal, which integrates with WordPress and helps you create blog posts that have a lot of really good keywords. There's HubSpot, and there's also Yodel, and then Buffer is one you can also use for social media. But so those are some basic marketing tools if you want to use them. If you're really new at this and you're just starting out, I don't feel like you really need to get overwhelmed with it. You're going to kind of find your own groove and then figure out where you want to focus, and maybe just pick one of these tools that feels more friendly or the most approachable. So then the tools for earned media, Haro, which I put in the sheet. So the website for that is helpareporter.com, and Haro is one of my favorite resources. I hesitate to tell more people about it because I thought it was just a PR person secret, but apparently everybody's using it now. So what Haro is basically all these reporters from all over the world will send requests for interviews or stories they're writing. So it's a great way of, I've seen requests on there for a couples therapist or advice from a therapist on how to handle a child with ADHD or that sort of thing. So Haro is a great resource to get some public relations or coverage somewhere in a media. There's a lot of people on the list, so the percentage of getting covered may not be that high, but it's a great place to start and just kind of see if people respond to you when you reach out to reporters and kind of hone in on, okay, well, I tried it this way and it didn't work. Maybe I need to change the way I'm talking to reporters. And then I think eventually, Haro, you get a few bites and just one good article somewhere, and it can really help your business. So I encourage people. There's also a lot of emails with Haro, so if you don't want to sort through them, then don't waste your time. But I want to make sure you know about that resource. Then obviously Yelp and Angie's List are both places where you can get resources, recommendations. I don't know many healers who have a lot of success on Yelp, to be honest. I think that because it's such a personal service-based thing, I think that Yelp doesn't do the best job, and you can get really lost really easily because there's so many people on there. So the earned thing, this is where I get to do my own personal pitch. The earned marketing tools, I'm actually creating a product called Tellem, and it's a friend-based recommendation site. So it really combines this word of mouth with people that you already know, which are two pieces that are really important to healers in particular. So I'll talk about that and I'll post my website later, but that's another tool that I'm really excited, and hopefully that'll be up by June. I think that'll be a really great resource. Another just different, easy way for therapists to get referrals and recommendations. And then finally, the marketing tools that are paid. I don't know how many of you have heard of Thumbtack. And I'm hesitant to, again, recommend Thumbtack. I haven't had a very good experience with it. I don't know how many people have. But if basically what Thumbtack is people will send out recommendations for what they need. So maybe they're looking for a massage therapist. And so they post on this site, and then you get a notification saying, oh, so-and-so and blah, blah, blah is looking for a massage therapist. And then you send in a quote, and you have to pay to submit a quote. And then they somehow, this is where it gets complex, is that then the first few quotes get sent to the person who requested it, and then they'll message back if they're interested in your service. The thing with Thumbtack that I feel like I have to warn you is it can feel really unfriendly, and which is why I'm really excited to start Tellem, because you basically don't have any contact with the person making the request. There's not a lot of personal contact, it's just an email, and most of the time I've actually never heard back from someone even after I submitted a quote. So it can kind of just feel like you're submitting this request and information about yourself into the ether and never hear anything. It makes me feel kind of bad about myself. So if you're into feeling bad about yourself, apparently you can use Thumbtack. But otherwise, it's just something to check out if you want to. And then there's Yelp ads, and I put it on there twice for some reason, even though they're not that helpful. So we're just about finishing up, but I want to do some quick tips on digital marketing, just because digital marketing is a huge realm. I took a whole class at General Assembly on it. It was like 3 months, and it was partnership with Google to teach these kind of new digital marketing strategies. And in all honesty, I walked away from it and just was really overwhelmed and not sure I use most of it at this point. But I wanted to at least give you some of the quick tips I learned in that class that are most applicable to what you're up to. So for social media, they found some of the best times to post, and this varies depending on the time of the day. It varies on lots of other factors, but in general, during the week from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. are some of the busier times on social media to post. I think that's mostly because people are at lunch or they're just coming back from lunch, and there's that transition. So it's usually first thing in the morning when people first arrive at work, where they're trying to get things done, they're checking their email and that sort of thing, or during lunch hour, kind of that midday range, or sometimes even really late in the day is helpful as well. But I tend to post around those times. So with email marketing, I would suggest you can create something with Constant Contact or MailChimp, and really, even if you just send something once a month, that's enough. Just because you have an email list doesn't mean you need to send a whole bunch of things, but an email marketing has some of the best, what they call ROI, or return on interest. So email marketing and word of mouth have the highest ROI. So social media, Google, AdWords, all these other things, the return on interest you usually get for investing your time on those is usually pretty low. So I really encourage people to do email marketing or blogging and focus on word of mouth. Those are the ones, especially for healers and therapists, that really give you the best investment for the time you've spent. And with an email marketing campaign, really be sure, if you're going to send an email, make sure there's something you want people to do with the email. Don't just send an email saying, hey, I'm doing really great, I got a few new clients, I'm starting a new service. Really make it clear what you want people to do as a result of receiving the email. That's something that a lot of people really miss when they send an email. You want some sort of way of showing, hey, I'm not just emailing you to say hi, I really want you to either sign up for a session, or I'm giving a discount, or I'm offering a workshop, or that sort of thing. So just make sure the CTA, as they call it, the call to action, is as clear as possible. And then for advertising, if you do decide to do advertising, again, I use it more for market research to confirm your target market or to assess kind of who's interested, but not necessarily to get clients. That's not really going to be your strong point for doing advertising. And then for SEO, a quick tip is to blog. And blog, I say at a minimum of, I'd say once a month is probably ideal if you don't have a lot of time. I mean, every week or every few days would be great, but as a healer, I want you to focus on what you're best at, which is healing. So I'd say for a blog, just using as many keywords as you can. And I know, as I mentioned, you can find those with AdWords. You can get keywords, or you can also just, a lot of those programs and marketing tools for blogs will give you a sense of what words are most popular right now in searches. And the Google Analytics is another really great digital marketing tip. If you have it on your website, some people check it every day, every hour to see who's visiting the site, what's happening. It's probably not necessary, but I look at mine at least weekly to just get a sense of, it'll tell you how long people are staying on the site, which is really important to know. If people are getting to your site and right away they're leaving, that tells you they're not finding what they're looking for right away. So that's why Google Analytics can be very, very helpful. It's also really helpful for understanding how many people are visiting your site per day and where the traffic is coming from. That's another really helpful thing to use. And then the homework for this part is just for marketing is, where do you want to focus? So, you know, you really don't need to try to do all of these at once. That can be really overwhelming. But it would be really helpful if maybe you just want to focus on your SEO for like a week or 2 weeks. You know, look at some of the tools I mentioned. Or maybe the next week you want to focus on social media and try to gather some support there. Maybe you want to create an email marketing. But just really, I encourage you to just pick 1 or 2 things to focus on at a time. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't try to take all of it on at once. That's just not going to be, that's not going to be useful if it's overwhelming. So those are just some really quick, my favorite kind of quick tips with digital marketing. And then the final section is on assessment. So again, I mentioned earlier that this is something most people forget about when they start marketing. You know, they're just kind of putting out all this information, hoping someone bites, but not actually thinking about who's biting and what's actually working. So some kind of quick basic things for this. So they call them KPIs, key performance indicators, or setting goals. And this is something I'm just offering it up. I don't know that you necessarily have to with a small healing practice, but it's nice to have a certain number of goals. You know, you'd like to have 1 or 2 new clients this month or this week, and really having measurable ones. KPI is more of just a way of key performance indicator. It's an actual measurement of what you want to have a goal with. So then again, website analytics, another way to look at assessment. So, you know, the number of, as I said, the time someone spends on the site, that's called the bounce rate, or the unique visits to a site. Then social media analytics, all the social media sites will tell you who's coming to your site. They'll show you the number of times people have visited, number of new likes, that sort of basic analytic could be helpful. And then email analytics, if you do decide to do email marketing at all, Constant Contact and MailChimp will tell you, you know, the open rate and the click-through rate. So if someone actually opened the email, if they didn't, usually if you do decide to do kind of an email marketing or focus more there, so you know, click-through rates and opening rates are usually really low. So don't be discouraged. It's more of having someone, being in someone's inbox and having them see you, even if they're not necessarily clicking on every link that you give them or every bit of information, it's still helpful. And then you could also measure the number of new clients you get, or even ask where they came from, track the number of inquiries you get per month, any basic way that you can start to assess where clients are coming from or how many new clients you're receiving. And then the tool for this, I think I have it on the worksheet, but there's a lot of different analytic features again. So tools for assessment are website analytics like Google Analytics, or social media analytics and email, that sort of thing. And then your homework for this is just set a goal and track it. I mean, it could be as simple as, I want to have 10 new visitors to my site this month, and then going through the process of what would you need to make that happen? What sorts of tools might you want to use? Or I want to post 2 blogs this week and have this many new visitors, or I want this many new referrals from this many people, or whatever it is. Without setting goals, it's really difficult to understand if you're improving or not. And then the final kind of piece are, these are my favorite kind of further education and resources. So General Assembly, again, they have a great digital marketing course that I took there. If you don't really want to have to invest that much time and money, a lot of the resources I gave to you are a lot that would be included with that sort of class. And then Fiverr, if you're wanting a new logo or if you're wanting help just in general with branding, that is a place where people can bid on projects that you provide. And then Udemy, the guy actually lives in San Francisco. He's a friend of mine, and he does a great job of just giving general business education courses on marketing, on creating a business, that sort of thing. And then my favorite, actually, and this is what I really want to give a shout out to, is Optima Freelancer Program. So they're based in at the Impact Hub Oakland. And they have this program that's 6 weeks for freelancers. So whether you're a healer or a design freelancer or whatever it is, they offer a 6-week course on really ramping up your business. And they utilize a lot of these tools that I talked about. They use what's called the lean startup methodology, which is what most startups use, where you basically create a product, test it, go back, research it. It's this kind of cycle of creating a business that is basically gives you immediate feedback on what you're doing. So Uptima, I can't say enough about it. They're really great. It has a female founder, and they're doing great work for making marketing and business more accessible to those of us who don't necessarily consider ourselves business people. It's really helpful to be in a group with that kind of support. So before we go to questions, I just want to leave up my contact information. So after this session, feel free to email me if you have any basic questions that you can't think of right now but that come up later. I'm more than happy to answer your emails. If you're wondering about a certain tool you want to try, or just kind of wondering basic stuff about marketing, you're thinking about advertising here or there or whatever. Anyway, I'm free to answer any of your questions. I'm also on Twitter, Wild Witch of West. Sounds so unprofessional, but I guess that's me. And then my site, RebeccaFerrar.com, has kind of links of other places to connect and some other resources on marketing occasionally. And then my baby right now is Tellum. Tellum is the site. And if you want updates or want information when it goes live to be one of the first people on there, I would definitely say visit that site and put your email, and I will send you updates when there is this new site that I'm hoping will blow Yelp and Thumbtack out of the water as far as its usefulness to service providers and healers in particular. So with all that being said, I know that that is a ton of information, but if there's any questions around specific stuff with the marketing channels or the marketing tools or other resources you have that you really enjoy that you'd love to share with other people, I'd love to hear them. I know we have just about 10 minutes or so for questions, but we don't need to save it. Thanks. No, it's
You're doing great. Thanks so much.
any questions?
Any last questions?
Yeah, if there's any other questions. I know it's a lot of information. I hope that it's not too overwhelming. I think that my attempt is to make marketing more accessible. I think that a lot of times it just feels really overwhelming, and I don't want people to have to focus on places that aren't helpful. So, oh, great. Okay. Oh, there it is.
Any thoughts?
Yeah.
No, I think that was great that you covered so much in so little time.
I know, it was a lot.
No, but it was very helpful. It takes a little digestion and homework. But it's good
Yeah.
that you put that out there.
Yeah, I was curious if you have tried any of the marketing channels or marketing tools. I mean, are you on social media, or are you just kind of wondering where to start?
I'm just starting out.
Okay.
Starting building a website. Haven't really thought much about using social media. I'm an MFT intern, so I've been kind of unsure if that's like, I don't know, it's just kind of, it seems like old school therapists didn't do that at all.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, I don't know, something about the way clients see you, and it's like kind of an ethical maybe issue. I don't know if you as a therapist.
No, I think that's a great point. I think especially with therapists, it can feel really weird to do marketing. And so I think that there is this fine line for therapists around, if you have a bunch of ads on Yelp or a bunch of ads on Facebook, it can feel kind of strange. And I know Psychology Today, there are quite a few people who do ads there. I think that's something I'm really curious about, especially in starting this new product, of how do I make it so that therapists can get recommendations that don't kind of have any sort of ethical dilemma attached to them. Making that really easy as possible. Because I love recommending my therapist, but there is always that, am I going to see them, or is it appropriate, or they have to, it just gets more complicated for recommendations for therapists. So you can't rely on word of mouth the way that a lot of other healers would. Actually, Audra, the computer isn't awake.
I think it's important to have a referral system if you're not going to
Yeah.
use social media or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. The referral system for sure.
Where did it go?
And I think a lot of therapists do pretty well when they just enhance their SEO even slightly. You know what I mean? Even just adding a few basic keywords to your site. So even if on your kind of profile page about you on your website, if you just add a few, like use the same words kind of over and over again that you want people to use to find you, that'll create searches in Google that will then link those words to you. So it can be really simple as just adding couples therapy 3 times in your description about yourself or whatever it is that you want to use.
Is it like the more you use that word, like couples, like is it better to use it like more times on the same page or something?
It's really complex. I mean, so you have to either have like meta tags and all these things that go into a website.
Let's just leave it and keep going.
Okay, but yeah, it really, I'm definitely not an SEO expert. I just know that from my own experience with WordPress, I just always use certain tags over and over again. And then that helps when people do a search for those, that my blog just comes up more and more to the top. But I also only update maybe every few weeks. So, I mean, when someone's building your site, they can actually program in SEO as they build it. So that with each page, they can program in like the description of your website, description of each page. And so that's something to ask when you are building a website, that they can do that. And I wanted to also do a quick shout out to the group called Hack the Hood. So if anybody does need a website, they are these groups of, I guess, teenagers learning to code out in Oakland, and they will build your site for free and then show you how to add on to it. So it's a really neat program. So if you don't have a website and you want one, they take on a certain number of businesses every semester, I think, to build a site for you for free. It's a really neat program. So yeah, and I don't know if we have any questions online because the computer's off, but we don't know what to do with it. So we're just gonna leave it. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me.
I have a question.
Yeah, it's
And if you could just repeat it. So I had a business that I'm no longer running, and I have a lot of things that are related to that business. And then I got married and changed my name, and so I have a lot of things with my old last name and not my new last name. And I'm wondering, should I take my old website platform and build off of that and edit it and update it? And it's been 2 years now. Is that worth it at all? Or am I pretty much starting from scratch anyways, and I could just build a brand new website?
So you're more concerned about in searches,
of-
people finding you?
Right, and like SEO and keywords and things. And if you search for me now, like a lot of things pop up from my old life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that, so if the question was around if, you know, you change your name or you get married and then kind of this business part of you is somewhere else, and then your new name doesn't really have this attachment to a new website. You know, I don't know. I think that if you, it's more a matter of where this is showing up if you don't want it to show up. But I'd say whatever site you're rebuilding or not building, to just make sure that your old name is in there as well. I mean, this is a problem with, I was going by Becky for a really long time, and now I go more by Rebecca. And so I have all this stuff that's by me as Becky, and that's just what it is.
Yeah.
I was doing really cool stuff when I was Becky. So I kind of wish it would have taken me now, but now I'm Rebecca, and so the Google search is not the same. It's just the detriment of name changes.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I guess. All right, well, I guess that's it. Again, I hope that this was helpful, and I hope that the resources in particular are helpful. If you have any other questions, feel free to be in contact, and visit tellem.com and get updates on a new word of mouth program. So thanks so much. Have a good afternoon.
You can always find more videos and career workshops on our YouTube channel at CIS Career Development. I'm just gonna turn.
Yeah, I don't know what else to do with it.